Welcome everyone to this webinar, Agency in the Spotlight. In this series, we are going to explore the latest trends for retail advertisers in digital marketing. We're going to dive deep into PPC strategies and also share you some insights to help you as an agency owner or search specialist to level up your game. My name is Sam Tielemans, and today I'm thrilled to bring you an episode that's guaranteed to inspire. Our guests today, they are true heroes in the world of PPC. They did not only master the art of running high-impact campaigns, but they also achieved recognition at the UK Search Awards in 2024. They have won the Best Use of Search Business-to-Consumer PPC category, which I feel is one of the most toughest and most competitive categories. So you're about to hear some interesting insights. And the agency that's in the spotlight today is Found, the EverSearch agency. They are a master of search performance across digital marketing platforms. They employ PPC, SEO, paid social, and creative content, as well as they do a harmless, they have the skill of the harmless power of data and AI to craft and execute winning digital marketing strategies, which they've proven, obviously, with the award, to ensure that your brand is driving impactful results for searches that matter to you. Now, in this session, we are going to hear the story behind their award-winning campaign, the strategies that they've used, the challenges that they overcome, and how they achieved the results that exceeded all expectations. We'll get also their take on the future of search marketing and how tools like AI are shaping the industry, which is on all of our minds these days. So feel free to engage as well. We got a chat throughout the session. This is for you guys to ask your questions. But to keep the webinar running smoothly, we'll get to the questions after we've done the part where we share the knowledge about this case. The webinar will also be recorded. So if you got to leave, don't worry, we'll send you the recordings afterwards to all of you. Now, please sit back, stop with anything else you're doing right now, and let's get into it. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. And let's give the word to our dear guests who are now to introduce themselves.
Yeah, hey Sam. Thanks for having us. It's a real pleasure to be on the webinar, and it's always really nice to work with yourself and the rest of the Producthero team. My name's Harry. I'm Director of Growth here at Found. Really, my role is about understanding our clients' businesses and their customers, and then I'll work with our amazing channel leads like Ella on building strategies that are really going to combine best practice digital marketing that's going to drive sort of commercial impact for our clients. So yeah, the case that we'll go through is a perfect example of taking, a commercial goal and then trying to deliver sort of innovative and cutting edge digital performance for that client.
Thank you, Harry.
Hey, I'm Ella. I'm a senior account manager here at Found, and as Harry said, working as a account lead on this particular client. So really working on the strategic direction of the account and what we can achieve when aligning to the business's KPIs. Really excited for today's webinar.
Nice. All right. So am I. Okay. Thank you very much. That was it for you today, guys. All right. Okay. So we're going to talk about the case, right? The case that got you the award. Tell us what is the case? Oh, that award. Exactly.
It's just it just happened to be.
Nice. Okay. Proof that you actually won the award. Well, what case was it and why did you get it?
So this case is working with our client First Central Insurance. So they're a motor and home insurance provider. This was in particular with the work that we did on their motor side. And we started working with them in February 2024. They hadn't really deployed paid performance activity before, and we're looking to kind of move away from their reliance on PCW, so price comparison websites, and see what we could bring to them as an incremental sales lift. So the real goal was around achieving those direct sales outside of PCW, but still retaining a similar CPA to what they were achieving within that channel. So yeah, it was something that we worked with them to kind of implement a strategy across paid performance, really with that implementation at the heart of it. And we utilised our every sales framework that we have here at Found to kind of really offer a deep client customer segmentation and utilise and harness their data to the best visibility.
Right. So, okay, I obviously already knew about the case. I've had the pleasure to dive into it and read about it, and also slightly already introduce it in the intro, that you've used the Every Search framework, which is also mentioned in the case. Harry, would you be able to elaborate a bit more on this framework?
Yeah, absolutely. And through the power of technology, I'm going to attempt to screen share. Here we go. Hopefully that's on the screen now. Yeah, so Every Search really is Found's answer to the rapidly changing digital landscape. And in particular, when we talk about search, I think the way that people search and the sort of content they're looking to engage in when they are asking questions or trying to find information, that's changed substantially compared to sort of 5-10 years ago. And in particular with the chart that we've got hopefully on the screen for everyone, is it just gives an idea of how different customer types and different audiences search in different ways. And in particular with younger audiences, we see the sort of the diversity of different channels they use when they're searching and discovering for brands and product online has changed rapidly, and it's a lot more diluted across the different channels. So Every Search really is our approach to understanding and mapping for your audience how and where are they searching online. And at the core of Every Search is the idea that you need to put an understanding of your customer first. And really, we've moved away from trying to think about a customer purchase journey as sort of linear steps through product discovery, consideration through to purchase, because it doesn't really reflect how people shop in sort of the modern digital landscape. Instead, we prefer to use what's called the messy middle model of marketing, developed by Google and the behavioral architects in 2020. And I think this gives a much more accurate reflection of really how people bounce between different types of search. So exploring, finding out what their options are, and then evaluating whether or not those options are right for them, and sometimes going back and forth between those two phases, and then finally coming out when they've sort of reached an exit velocity to make a purchase decision. And with Every Search, it's understanding for different customers at different points of their purchase journey, where and how are they looking for that information, and then mapping that against our clients' channel mix. Still, the aim of the game, I think, as it has been for a long time, is media effectiveness. Every Search isn't do everything everywhere. No one's marketing budget can really afford to do that. So our sort of expertise and the specialty that we apply is really making sure that the activity that you do deploy is tackling those really specific customer-centric goals on the channels where those customers are looking to sort of answer those questions.
Right. Okay. It certainly looks great, and it also makes me thinking. We over here at Producthero, we believe in offering scalable solutions so that the agencies that we work with or the direct advertisers are also able to use that for their shopping ads. Right. So we were very much focused on e-commerce. If you did not have access to, for instance, that research framework, where would you start in that case?
Yeah, I think for any business at any scale, you can build some form of customer segmentation. And we're not just talking about B2C. Obviously, in the B2B space, it's actually really applicable when you're working in different sectors with businesses of different size. So my biggest advice, especially for businesses looking to replicate this approach at a smaller scale, is make a start on building some form of customer segmentation. And then once you get distinct groups of different customers, you can really start to map how and where are they searching for information, and the needs and purchase pressures of, in the B2B space, like a large enterprise client compared to a small to medium sized enterprise is going to be really different. And obviously in the retail space, different types of customers are sort of either out there to discover new and exciting brands for them, or they're looking to evaluate product detail. Tying it all back to some form of customer understanding is a really good starting point. And naturally that leads to, wanting to build a first party data strategy. I think that term often scares people away as sort of that's going to be some complex situation around data compliance. But really all we're talking about is you likely have rich data on your existing customer base. So start to work through it, start to build through unique and distinct customer segments, and then build your strategy based on that understanding, I think is a good approach.
Perfect. Start segmenting how and where are they searching from, and then head towards that first party data strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
Glad you covered that already. Ella, maybe a good question for you. How critical was that first party data in shaping your campaign strategy in this case? And what advice would you give our audience that might be working with limited data resources?
Yeah, so in terms of working with First Central, something that's fantastic about the client is they are really data rich. But one of the challenges that we kind of came across early on was that they didn't necessarily know how to harness that data and really understand their customer better. So similar to what Harry's kind of just spoken about with Every Search, it was about working to understand and categorize that data to really be able to implement it from a creative standpoint and a more strategic standpoint with that audience work. So something that we did is working with our sister agency Breda and the great data scientists that we have there, and kind of taking all of that first party data and being able to create segments from that based on key characteristics, of that kind of data set. And once we had those, we were able to apply those to our paid performance activity. And also what was really great about those segments was being able to create lookalike segments within paid social and similar audiences within Google, and really harness those again for, kind of what AI can see from them and what kind of further customers we can target through those lookalike and similar audiences. When it comes to clients that might not necessarily be able to harness their first party data, so for example, B2B clients, they might struggle to utilize customer match lists. At least with paid search, there's a lot of kind of solutions that are already out there. So within platform, there's a lot of AI generative audiences that you can utilize, and really being able to go to specific. So for example, if it's a vertical specific campaign that you're running, there's a lot of options within Google to be able to apply to that whilst not being able to use that first party data. On top of that as well, within Google, there's the recommendations page. So something that we found really useful with some of those clients that struggle with first party data is the recommendations around those pre-built audiences that index highly to engage or convert with your activity. And it's, a simple thing that you can go in and check. It's a thing that you can update frequently, and we've been able to utilize those and really see some success through that, as I say, with those clients that don't have a lot of customer data.
Wow. Okay, that's fully covered on what I was asking. Quick summary here, to check in if I get that all correctly. You happen to work with your sister agency, so try to work with partners if you can. This is both B2B, B2C, but especially in B2B, that would be helpful. If you have constraints, then you could use whatever is available, such as the generative audiences from Google in the recommendations page to make use of the pre-built audiences.
Absolutely, yeah, great summary there, Sam.
All right, brilliant. Is that also how you guys have started yourself before you had access with the Every Search framework?
Yeah, I think in terms of first-party data uses, that's gone on a totally crazy journey, I think, over the history of digital advertising. And, you've gone from the extreme level where there really wasn't much in the way of data compliance and data control. And I think with the increase in that regulation, actually, it's forced us to think smarter. So you don't have out-of-the-box tools to just, remarket to everyone and use really kind of rich data regardless of how you gathered it. And if anything, it's sort of made us develop strategies that are more robust, more resilient to changing the space. But like I said, there's no shortcuts and quick wins now. So you have to put a lot more thought into what the strategy is and how you're optimizing for commercial impact for the client. So yeah, it's probably harder now, but better strategies are going to always deliver better results for our clients.
All right. I am smiling, but that's not what I was hoping to hear. Obviously, that there's no more shortcuts and easy wins, but it's reality we have to deal with. Another thing that is available and accessible to almost everyone right now is AI. And if I understood correctly, you used AI in multiple parts of your campaign, such as enhancing the audience segmentation, analyzing the first-party data. Can you elaborate a bit more on steps that you took to use AI in your campaign success and the challenges that you faced while integrating it?
Yeah, so like Ella hinted at, one of the big benefits of working with First Central is they have a huge amount of first-party data with their clients, and the nature of an insurance product is their customers are giving over a lot of data that kind of helps us understand who they are. The challenge with that is there's a lot of data. So if we want to work through and start to build distinct customer segments, to do that manually would be a monumental task. The most beneficial application, I think, of AI is in pattern finding and doing it very, very quickly. And so with the client, they didn't really want to start by sort of guessing what distinct customer groups would be. So instead, we used AI and machine learning applied to the complete data set, obviously anonymized completely. So we didn't actually use any of the PII, so the personally identifiable information. We're more interested in behavioral signals and other attributes of those customers. And yeah, the key thing is AI is good at pattern finding. So it can very quickly and very efficiently start to build distinct groups of similar looking customers. And then, like Ella was saying, we can take those customer types and bring those into the platform and apply those to the bidding strategy. So you've got sort of AI working with AI, where we've used AI to build the segments, and then the platforms themselves will use the same technology to optimize for their bidding algorithms. And the really interesting thing we saw is by simply applying those distinct customer groups, we started to see immediate gains in efficiency. And our interpretation of that is you're just giving the bidding algorithm something to work with, and it starts to be able to adapt how it optimizes for one group compared to another. And so it's interesting how quickly we saw the uptake in performance there. And then where we've taken that to the next level now is starting to test things like different creative approaches for the different audiences to understand, is it different purchase pressures that are interesting to them? Is it different demographic things that determine, what products they want to buy, and taking that AI segmentation out to then apply that kind of human brilliance to the creative approach.
So it saved you a lot of time with, having that AI help in recognizing patterns, but then also it set you up for some new tasks to do, because there's some great things to act on for the next steps. Cool. I want to remind our audience that you can put your questions in the chat in the meeting. If something's covered now, we're going to get back to it later. Just a quick reminder to you guys. And then we're going to move on to more challenges that you guys face in this case. From what I got out of the case is that I read something about that the campaign faced challenges like compliance constraints, as only 2 ads were historically used. Ella, you'd like to share something more about how you approach this issue and what lessons you learned from it?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you've kind of touched on, pre us working with First Central, they had a very, very minimal kind of level of paid activity happening. And that was just 2 ads that was within the account. So once we took First Central on, we wanted to build out a really comprehensive structure for them, tailored around their different product types and targeting those different users at different points of their purchase journey. Something that anyone that works with financial or insurance-based clients will probably know is that there's a really high level of compliance and regulatory sign-off that you have to do with their legal teams, and obviously compliance as well. So that was something that we knew coming into it, and something that we very much had at the top of our mind. So something that I would say that's really important when working with clients in that space is that you want to have a really clear and transparent kind of line of communication. So what that looked like in kind of day-to-day terms is having a really kind of concise but built out structure in terms of ad copy and keywords that you're going to be bidding on from a search campaign perspective, sharing those with the client and allowing enough time for that to go through kind of the different levels of sign off that obviously have to happen on their side. I think we've now got that into a really good space. Something that would be a word of kind of advice when it comes to that is you might have a time frame in mind and hoping to hit certain deadlines, but always have a pinch of salt with that. It can be a couple of weeks extra to what you think it will be, especially when you're working with large organizations, as I say, with those kind of different levels of sign off that need to happen. I'm really taking on board the feedback that comes from that. You obviously have to be very brand safe with those kind of clients and making sure that you're hitting those key messages whilst also sitting within that compliance kind of sign off as well.
All right. Brilliant. Thanks for the advice. And very creative and innovative, if you'd ask me. I do feel that this was quite a specific issue, but for this case. And there was another challenge here that might be a bit more common, at least I would feel that way, is that you had the data reporting inaccuracies, and you had to rely on Adobe Analytics here to, as it conflicted with the platform figures. I think that's more common, and I'm curious how you solved that part.
Yeah, I think anyone who works in the digital space now will sort of wince slightly when we talk about measurement and data accuracy. It's clearly, a really challenging thing in our space. Interestingly, with this project, we're working with multiple data sources. So the big three that we work with is obviously platform metrics, and we were optimizing towards platform conversion targets. So the purchases that were coming through that is really what we were aiming for from a optimization point of view. In this case, the client actually uses the Adobe suite. So rather than something like Google Analytics 4, they use Adobe Analytics. And then the third one will be their sort of core CRM data. And really that's the single source of truth that they trust, because it's their actual bottom line number. In this case, the sort of interesting challenge we had is, like I said, we're working towards one set of numbers on the platform that's pretty different to what we see on the CRM for a variety of reasons. Now, in scenarios where those two numbers agree, so we push investment, we see an increase in one, we see it on the other one, that's quite straightforward. But the challenge is when those two things are incongruent and they're trying to understand that. And really, the sort of solution that we've worked on with the client is almost taking a few steps back and kind of going to the old school of more of an incrementality view. So back in the day where marketing was a lot less digital and you had far fewer ways of tracking and measuring campaigns, you still had to have a method of understanding what the incremental impact of your activity was. And that's been the way we've approached it here, is really focus on measuring ROI on the client's core sales numbers, and then working through a variety of different tests, whether it's geographical holdout, testing between different audience types and lists, and then looking at what that incremental uplift. The big benefit of that, although it's sort of different to how we would normally work across a lot of accounts, is it's a number that the business can stand by. So getting further buy-in from essentially the budget holders in the business, if you can really stand by that number because it's been established in a rigorous scientific way, is only going to be beneficial in the long run. So it's been a really interesting and unique challenge, but one that, like I said, it's probably going to have a much more robust buy-in from the wider business.
All right, brilliant. Guys, thank you for such detailed answers to all my questions. We are at 22 minutes right now. I want to save some more time for some questions coming. So I'm going to head to my last question now before we dive into the chat. So about cooperation with your client here, how did you ensure alignment during the campaign, and especially when you introduce a new methodology, such as in this particular example, the Ever Research framework?
Yeah, I think Ella's hinted at some of that already in terms of how we smoothed out how we do sort of creative and get those things signed off. And some of that was just a journey that we went on with the client to sort of establish that. I'd say the specific thing about this case is, again, they didn't really have a ways of working before we onboarded with the client. It's not as though we inherited a system that was already in place and functioning. So for us, a lot of it was about understanding the degree to which the client has digital fluency. There's no point, disgruntling a client by continuously talking in jargon and acronyms, because they're going to not really follow what you're saying, but also you can't get their input, and they are experts in their own subject matter. So the first thing is speaking in terms that they can relate to in a more sort of jargon-free approach. And then going back to the point around getting sort of further buy-in from the business, one of the things that we've learned over time working with First Central is there are people across the business that are naturally heavily invested in wanting this to be successful, because it results in performance for their own business. And so it's really bringing those stakeholders in at the right time. You don't want too many cooks in the kitchen for every single kind of update, but there's been scenarios where we've worked with their internal analytics department to support on the incrementality testing. The bigger proportion of their business is managing the work with the price comparison websites, and there's a wealth of knowledge in there that we can kind of tap into and collaborate with. And so it's really about bringing those people in, being collaborative, but in scenarios where you can sort of get the most out of it and not try and have 100 different sort of takes on every element of what we do. So yeah, it's all about sort of understanding client stakeholders and when to bring them into the fold.
and understanding that once you did great and won a case, that there's always the next step where and now what else are we going to take from it? All right. Okay. Thanks again, guys. That concludes the main part of our webinar here. In other series, we will also dive into some questions about the ways of measuring success and to discuss more about the future of PPC and search marketing. So for now, let's open the floor to the questions of our audience. I'm gonna head off to the chat, and I'm just gonna try to start on top of it. We got Gert here. He asked, why AI did you use for creating the segments? I think, for this, I'd like to give the word to you guys.
Yeah, was the question why or what?
Yeah, I think it was what, actually.
That's a great question. I'd have to probably defer that to our data team. Yeah, so it was a machine learning approach. And to be honest, that's as far as I followed the conversation when they probably explained it to us.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Lauren Tiu from Romania, I guess, asked us when she can get access to the AI on Producthero app. We're working on that. As soon as we'll know, we'll make sure that you're informed. Thank you for that question, though. Rachel here, for insurance, how can you stop people just going through price comparison websites after they have seen an ad? It's a very interesting question.
Yeah, so the short answer is obviously you can't. Typically, when we look at how people prefer to shop for insurance, almost every customer type prefers to go through a price comparison website, principally because it's a financial product, and on a price comparison website, you can compare what price you've been quoted against all of the competitors. So that's a natural thing. In this case, one part of it was, okay, we can't stop them from doing that. We want to optimize naturally for the people who stay in and purchase direct. And so, yeah, with the platforms, we would set a conversion target that is exclusively the people who go through the direct journey. And again, let the bidding algorithm do the heavy lifting there of discerning which users are more likely to go and purchase through the direct journey than leave the site and go in through a PCW. Ultimately, though, it doesn't matter too much, because even if, as a consequence of our activity, a customer sees the ad, engages with the brand, but then goes through that more popular purchase journey, it's still a purchase at the end of the day. And so a secondary part of our work is still using that incremental approach in terms of which sales are sort of as a result of our activity, but differentiating between the direct and PCW to sort of give a second layer of benefit of the work that we do. Great,
thank you. I hope that answers your question, Rachel. It seems to be there's a lot of interest in the AI systems. We got two questions here. Let's try to combine the both. We got Tuomo and we got Nick van der Meer. Tuomo asked, does the AI platform you used eat even huge Excel files with customer attributes and sales performance, and then gives most promising segments or something else? And what Nick was asking was, what is the best non-paid AI system that you can use for digital marketing? Well, hopefully one that can eat the huge Excel files.
Yeah, so one of the key considerations is when we're processing this much data, obviously that incurs a bit of cost in terms of the servers that are used to actually process that. My understanding is it's not done sort of through Excel files, and it's done, I believe, through some BigQuery analysis, but we would need to probably do another webinar, and we can bring in the amazing data scientists from the Breda team who can give you a much more educated answer to that question.
All right. Yeah, I hope so, guys. Let me know if that's sufficient for you in the chat. Then another question from Rachel here. Are people searching on platforms like TikTok in the same way that they would search on Google?
It's a great question. I think one of the stats that's often quoted these days is that sort of TikTok is now a bigger search engine than Google. And I think when you start to unpack that doesn't hold much water, but it's clearly a platform that people are using to search. I think the key distinction is the way they're searching, and in particular the type of content that they're searching for, is very different. There is a bit of data out recently from Producthero, and they looked at the proportion of searches broken out between Google, social search, and then things like some of the AI tools like ChatGPT. Google is still by far and away the sort of dominant search force. But crucially, what you want to look at when you're considering search on something like TikTok is, first of all, which is the audience that is on there, and it's now not just sort of Gen Z, if you want to call them that. It's represented across all age demographics, and in particular on that sort of 25 to 45, which is a key age range for a lot of businesses. But also, it's the level of engagement, and the thing that stands out for me when you think about a platform like TikTok is just the sheer amount of time that people spend on that platform. I think the average per user is 90 minutes per day, and in some categories it's upwards of sort of 4 hours. So if you want really high levels of engagement with that type of search, then TikTok is probably a more appropriate platform in some circumstances, depending on the audience.
All right, thank you very much, Harry. I'd like to leave it at that for now. We've hit the 30-minute mark. I would like to thank our audience for being present and to attend this webinar and asking your questions. If you have any more questions to ask for Ella or Harry, you can always email to hello@producthero.com, and I'll make sure that your message are put through to them. Harry and Ella, thank you very much for taking the stage here today and share your knowledge and expertise related to this case, and also related to the agencies and the advertisers we work with at Producthero. We're gonna catch up soon together. Yeah, guys, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sam. Pleasure to be on.